Today we're going to talk about the Decent Milk Jug. Now, I'm the person who designed and iterated it, so I'm probably going to do most of the talking today. First thing I want to talk about with the Milk Jug is these precision measurement lines that go all the way to the bottom and all the way to the top. And the reason I put those in is I was really struggling when I was making various latte and flat white and other drinks with how much foam I needed. And when I finally nailed it, I realized there was a ratio between how much milk I put in and how much foam there was afterwards. So I might start with, for example, 180 milliliters when I started not foaming, and then when it was finished foaming, it was 50% more at 250, and I liked that. And by having measurement lines in, I made sure that every time I foamed, I did it right, or if I did it wrong, I could eyeball it and see that. And it's there for both right-handed and left-handed people, so you can get it from this side or this side, and you can still see the measurement lines here. There's a lot of markings on the lines because the ratio of dilution turns out to be quite important. When you're making a latte, for example, I make a morning latte for my partner, I do 36 grams out of espresso, and she likes exactly 160 grams of milk. If I give her 150, she says, ooh, this tastes off. If I give her 170 mils, she goes, ooh, it's a bit milky. And then it's just right at 160. I know that sounds absurd, but coffee and caffeine in particular, they're toxins, and we're very, very sensitive to the concentration of it.
That's right.
And so the exact dilution, just like cocktails, is pretty important. Do you have any comments about that?
I definitely agree with the volume as it expands, and I like to think of it kind of like as if you want a bit thicker foam, I want to see at least 50% increase. If I want a latte, maybe 25% increase, and if I'm really doing sort of delicate latte art, maybe even a little bit less than that. So it really does matter what sort of drink you're making to how much you need to expand. But with the lines inside, you can actually really accurately do it, and don't have to use a scale to sort of weigh. You can just look off the lines and know you're in the ballpark straight away.
So I think especially when you're just starting out, it's pretty important to measure things, otherwise you aren't repeatable. Now, if you are running a cafe, there's another reason to do this. I remember talking to Scott Rayo, and once at his cafe, just to see how much milk wastage there was, he set up a bucket, and all the baristas with the waste milk they had were supposed to dump it in the bucket. And what he found was 20% of the milk they were buying was being thrown down the sink. And since he was buying expensive organic milk, that was expensive.
Yes. Yeah.
And even if you're at home, it's kind of painful to waste that much nice milk. Putting just the right amount in, I think, makes a big difference. There's one other reason, which is with latte art, is that as you're pouring, thicker foam will tend to be on the bottom. And so if, for example, you're pouring a 200 ml latte, but you've got 250 mils of foam, it's going to be too thin when you reach the bottom. And that won't be quite right. And obviously it's really bad if you're just exactly what you need and you're like sort of scraping the bottom, because kind of this beer foam comes out at the very end, and you don't really want that unless you're making like an Italian cappuccino and you just want a blob. So I think that's another reason.
Yeah, I like to play a little game with myself.
Yeah.
Because obviously latte art is kind of, can you stretch enough air in there and microfoam to be just enough? Mm-hmm. And because I'm sort of reducing the amount of air I'm letting in, I'm always playing chicken with, can I pull it through and have enough foam to place my art? And the just kind of working on that kind of makes you more accurate in itself. Mm-hmm. And definitely with the lines, you can achieve that a lot more easier.
Mm-hmm. So the other thing I noticed is that if you heat your milk beyond 70 Celsius, you've ruined the drink. First of all, the milk is going to taste cooked. But also, if you pour that hot milk on the espresso, I don't really know why, it just ruins the flavor permanently. So too hot milk on there, even when it's cool, it's going to taste bitter later on.
Yeah. When you start reaching over 70 degrees, you basically start to reduce the sugars. And that's why your overall beverage at the end is not as sweet. It's generally a little bit more bitter.
Right.
And has that sort of hot milk, cold milk on a warm day sort of thing. When you, after an hour, you got that aftertaste. It kind of has that little bit of that taste in there. So yeah, try to keep it under 70 and you should be all right.
So there is a solution to this, and the solution is to use a thermometer. But you'll see there's a clip on this thermometer, and everyone hates these clips because you put the thermometer on, and then as you're pouring, it flops back to that and maybe even falls out. Also, it's in the way and it doesn't even stay in place. So everyone hates these clips. This is our milk thermometer, and we do ship it with a clip because that's what people expect. But you don't need to use the clip if you have a decent milk jug, because about 3 months of figuring out the exact size of a hole here meant that you can just put the thermometer straight in, and I'll show you what that looks like. Is you just slide it in like that and give it a tap, and it's completely locked in and it doesn't fall out. And then to take it out, you just give it a twist and it pulls out. Do that again. So slide in, tap, totally locked. Okay. I don't know why no one's actually copied this. It's a pretty obvious idea. Everyone hates the clip, but it's really a key feature of this milk jug that it makes it really easy. Now, one other aspect of using this little hole is that the milk thermometer is out of the way, right? So as I'm steaming here, it isn't in my face. Whereas when I use a clip, it's here, it's completely in the way, and I can't steam as easily. So that clip is just a wonderful thing. And I'll show you, this is the 600 ml jug, this is the 350, and they both work the same way. It locks like so, pours, comes out. I wish every cafe did this. Back to milk temperature. So I did make these walls quite thin, and that was on purpose. The reason they're thin is that the majority of people, they heat the milk and they know when to stop, basically by counting down from when it starts to hurt their hand. I know that sounds ridiculous, but that actually is what cafes do. They put their hand like this on the bottom, and it turns out that around 50 Celsius is the threshold of pain, at which point it starts to hurt. And you want your milk typically between 55 and 65 Celsius. So do that, and then count down 3 seconds if you want 55, count down 10 seconds if you want 65, sort of. But A, it's painful, and B, especially if you're a cafe, this hand starts to become numb and the temperature starts to creep up. Or, again, if you're a cafe, you're in a rush, it's the morning rush, you just stop early and then you start serving your customers cool drinks. Okay? There's one other thing about using a milk thermometer that's super important, and that's that if you are pouring drinks into ceramic, it's going to cool by about 10 centigrade as soon as you pour it in. If you're pouring your drinks into paper, it cools about 2 centigrade, just to say almost not at all. That's super important. If you're a cafe and you're doing takeaway drinks, you should be stopping your steaming 10 centigrade earlier. If you're not, you're giving people too hot drinks. Another reason that's important, besides the fact that people are getting too hot drinks, is that milk tastes better the less it's heated. And the current trend in cafes, especially third wave quality places, is to bring milk temperatures down to 50, even 55 Celsius, in that range, and never above 55. Because the milk has a much fresher, buttery flavor from that.
And it seems to have a little bit more texture as well. I'm not sure if the heat is causing the bubbles to last a little bit longer or staying a bit more robust. But I definitely do notice a difference when it's a little bit lower. And I find it pairs a little bit better with lighter roast coffees because it's ultimately it will be a little bit sweeter. So
it's true that especially the lighter roast people are really into keeping that temperature down. But we're talking about maybe 2 or 3 seconds between 55 and 60, 65 Celsius. Yeah. If you can do that consistently without a digital thermometer, you're amazing. The rest of us, you should get a thermometer, and so you don't curse everything, use one of these little holes. Next, we should probably talk about this quite unusual spout, which is pointed. And the reason this spout is pointed is that when I designed this milk jug, I asked a friend of mine in America to get me as many competition latte artists as I could. And I got 22 competition latte artists. And I asked them, what did they want in a spout? And they all said loudly, we just want a straight angle. And I know this is super weird and super unusual, but the reason is that the vast majority of milk jugs have this kind of sloping thing like this, and those are fantastic for beginner to intermediate. basically the milk just kind of gushes out, comes out easily, spreads out, and you get this huge rosetta or heart pattern kind of without any effort. However, once you advance beyond that kind of basic pattern and you want to do more detailed lines, let's say swans, like a swan neck is quite fine, now you've got a problem with that sort of thing. And the reason this is a triangular shape is that as you angle this, it literally increases the flow. You can treat it as a thick and then thin paintbrush as you back up, and then thick again like that. And it gives you really fine grade control, but it is more work. It takes more skill. And people who don't like this, it's generally because they haven't stuck with it, and you have to learn. And I know when I was a beginner, we used to sell that sort of big spout, and I liked the bigger spout one. And then I think about 3-4 months after I got into it, I realized I was only using this because I liked the finer control and I didn't need that crutch anymore.
Yeah. I think it's great for framing with the rolled lips, and you can get beautiful balance sort of hearts and rosettas. But once you've mastered that stage and you really want to start to work on other things, you will find that rolled lip won't give you the flexibility in terms of the pace of the milk that is going in. And if you practice latte art long enough, you'll kind of know it's all about the pace, position, and pour. And if you don't have control over the pour, then you are limited to what you can achieve with that actual jug. So with this jug, it gives you the opportunity to practice pace and pour, but also to have the ability to achieve those more complex latte art. But if you did, stick with it, you will find that your milk pouring skills will be a lot more accelerated in terms of pace of learning than compared to a rolled lip. So some people try and they don't like it, and they kind of miss out a little bit, but I understand it if they like to use what they're used to using, and that's fine. But if you do feel like you're up for the next challenge, you want to push your latte art, I would suggest getting a more precision lip like the one we sell.
So Paul has already made an espresso, and he's going to pour latte art now with our 350 milk jug.
So we're going to start now. So the crema has died on here, so I do need to pour this a little bit slower, but the milk is good. Okay, I'm going to pull in through here now. And I was almost at that stage where I was basically almost running out of foam.
What I noticed with your latte art is lots of very fine lines.
Yes,
see, these aren't big spreads. These are like really fine onion lines. And that's kind of typical of this jug, is very fine detail. Thanks for watching this video all about the Decent Milk Jug. And if you give it a try, I would love to see in the comments below what you think of it and think there's anything we can do to improve it.
Thanks very much.